Well, good day to you. It is the 5th of December, and I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day. Hopefully it's not raining as much as it's raining here, but if it is, it is what it is, as they say. It'll eventually be sunny. But my name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. If you are new, and welcome you back if you have listened to these videos before. But whether you've heard this information before, or you're stumbling across this information for the very first time, I do think the best thing that you can do with this upon hearing it is to investigate it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Look into it for yourself. I've included links in the description portion of every one of these videos because they take you to websites that give you really good background information about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, about the many miracle signs, and of course about the priorities of Maitreya and why it's so important that we start to look at ourselves as one family in order to solve the problems of the world. Sounds utopian, I know, but he's offered some simple steps in order to really manifest oneness on this planet. We're going to talk about it in this video like I talk about it in every video because it's the most important thing that we could talk about. Now, you can also learn more about this information by posting your comment, and sometimes I discuss that comment if it's, can help us learn more about this information. I always try to address questions and answer questions in the next video, but you can also email me at searchforsigns@mail.com too. It's one way, other way of doing it. But I do want to thank Ben Fitz. I loved everything what you had to say up until the very last word. I had to take down what you had to say because of the very last word, and I'm going to try to discuss, and maybe we can learn more about this information based on what you said up until the very last word. Now, Persia, Raul Samuel A. Period. Thank you for your comment. Jethro Joshua, Ashawak Radadi, Rick Todd, Ricardo West Pesoli, Chad D. Lanier, and Wat Chong. You guys all commented since the last time I put a video up and asked a question or two. Thank you very much for doing it. If it wasn't for you, I would have literally nothing to say in this video. All right, now, let's get on into it, because I do have a comment coming from Persia, Raul Samuel A. What do you have to say? A true Messiah hides from the world. Christ, Buddha, Sri Ramakrishna, and other avatars of God have remained hidden. It is up to man to find them, not them showing up and boasting, quote, miracles and wonders, unquote. Well, thank you for your comment. And I just want to say this, is from time to time, I have people who express their concerns in a comment, and upon reading their comment, I realize, and I just can't help but wonder if they actually took the time to listen to the video. So, when I can be able to catch up with them, by replying to their comment and say, did you actually listen to the video? Almost all the time they say no. Okay. And even if you didn't listen to the video, did you take the time to go and do some research and check out some of the background information that I put the links for in the description portion? And they say no. And the reason is because based on your comment and the concern that you have about what I'm talking about, I don't talk about it in that way. So, because there's no truth to that. Maitreya is not going around boasting about anything. In fact, really, where we're at right now is he's not claiming to be Maitreya. We don't even know if that is Maitreya on TV. He's just presenting himself as an ordinary person. Now, I don't think it's true to say that Buddha, Sri Ramakrishna, and the Christ remained hidden, because we know who they are, right? They approached humanity, sought to teach humanity, show humanity the way forward, of course, right? But as it was then, as it is now, it was for every one of the people who were listening to what they had to say to decide for themselves if what they were saying was true or not. The ideology, the dogma that came afterwards, the demand for loyalty, the demand for believing what they're saying is true and those kind of things, and all the bad things that would happen if you don't, especially talking about the Christ for the Christians, right? I think was all put in there by people, not by the actual teacher. And today is no different. Maitreya, speaking directly to humanity, again, is not claiming to be Maitreya. He's not claiming to be the Christ come back for the Christians, or the Imam Mahdi, or one of the other teachers that are awaited by the other major religions, or anything like that, or as a world teacher for those people without any kind of religious background and those kind of things. He's just claiming to be an ordinary person who's deeply concerned about the problems of humanity. That's it. And it's for each and every one of us to, first and foremost, think about what he's saying when we hear him and decide for ourselves if there's truth to what he's saying. And it's also for each and every one of us to look within ourselves and go, is what he's saying actually important? And then after those two things, to really to recognize him as Maitreya, if that's the case, or not. It's not important, I think, to really even recognize him, obviously, because he's not claiming to be Maitreya. And it's not important to believe who I believe Maitreya to be. It's far more important to look at the priorities of Maitreya and see if there's any truth to that. So, like for instance, in every video I talk about this: without sharing there will be no justice, without justice there will be no peace, without peace there will be no future. Maitreya said this years ago. Is there any truth to it? We're going to talk about it, but also too, that's central to his priorities, the principle of sharing. It's the most important thing that humanity can do at this time, according to Maitreya, is to start the principle of sharing. For nations to give of their excesses of resources to other nations, have those nations give back to either that nation or another nation freely and that kind of thing. Because according to the masters, every nation needs something from another nation that has an excess of that, whatever that is. So some nations don't have as much excesses as others, of course, because they're not a rich nation. They might be a poor nation, but they have something to give back. But that, according to Maitreya, that process, that principle of sharing, was the only thing that will bring about justice in the world, bring about trust amongst the nations, and bring about peace, and will give us a future, according to Maitreya. Now, the second thing is, and I talk about this from a lot, is because in reference to the principle of sharing, is that true what he said? Does it bring about justice and bring about peace? Well, I talk about the Marshall Plan, and I have a link in the description that talks about the Marshall Plan, and whether it's the Wikipedia page or some videos that talk about the Marshall Plan. And they don't really talk about it from this perspective, but if you look at it from this perspective, you can kind of maybe see where I'm coming from with this, is that the nations that participated in the Marshall Plan right after World War II were at one time at war with one another, whether it was World War I or World War II or before that. Since then, not one nation that participated in the Marshall Plan has attacked one another. Those nations trust one another better, those kind of things. Even though that principle of sharing, according to the masters, the only time it ever happened, the Marshall Plan, ended over 75 years ago. Or 70 years ago, excuse me. I always get the years mixed up. But anyway, but you know what I'm saying. So look into it, investigate, and see if there's any truth to what he's saying. But he's not going around boasting anything, The only thing I would say he would be boasting is the fact that we are one family, that we are one. According to Maitreya, the only way to truly bring about and manifested unity on this planet is to institute the principle of sharing. That's the only way. There is a way to manifest unity on this planet, and that's it. It's not just words, it's not just talking, but when we hear Maitreya and recognize Maitreya, he'll be boasting about humanity, about the divinity of humanity, how we're one, how we can bring about peace, but not about wonders and miracles. For what? You know what I'm saying? So hopefully you did, I'm sure other people have had that same kind of concern. But, the other thing too is the Christ, as with the Buddha and Sri Ramakrishna, and as with Maitreya today, there was always somebody that came out beforehand to kind of let people know, hey, there is a teacher here that's about to come out or about to talk to you about the way forward and show humanity the way forward. Of course, John the Baptist was that for Jesus. Now, I don't know the person's name by name, but there was somebody who did it for the Buddha and did it for Krishna, according to Ben's master. And Benjamin Creme was the individual for Maitreya who's when he was alive, for decades, he let the world know that Maitreya was here. It's for each and every one of us to eventually recognize Maitreya for ourselves, just as it was for each and every one of us, if we were alive during the time of Jesus, to see if what Jesus was saying is true. The dogma, all that stuff, all the demand for loyalty, the demand to give devotion to an ideal, that all came in afterwards by man. Those teachers, those three teachers that you just mentioned, did not demand devotion from anybody the way that the people think that they did. They just spoke to humanity at wherever they were at that time, and it was for each and every person at that time to recognize if what they were saying was true. And then if they wanted to, and if it was for them to do it, they took it a step further and recognized them as being this great divine teacher. But other than that, they didn't go around claiming that either. Just like you said. So I agree with what you said to a point. So anyway, but I do appreciate your comment nonetheless, and hopefully we learn more about Maitreya, and hopefully that will quell some of the concerns that you and others might have about me talking about Maitreya in the way that we're talking about him in this channel and so forth. Now, Ben Fitz. This kind of goes along the lines of what you were talking about. And like I said, I'm going to read this all the way up to the last word because that's the reason why I took the comment down. So please refrain from swearing and name calling it in that way. So you're saying that the Great Reset, misspelled from the World Economic Forum, is the path to the age of Maitreya, spelled incorrectly. That is not a religious leader, spelled incorrectly, but a politician. No, in no way, shape, or form did I say any of that. Okay, so go back and re-listen to that video and you'll see that I was just trying to answer a question that somebody had. But anyway, and about the times 10 Obama initiates 7 wars in 8 years and Trump 0 wars. And for peace treaties in the Middle East, spelled incorrectly. It actually says Middle East. So, eat your words. Okay, well, let's go back and, I've addressed the first part. The second part about the 10 times Obama initiating 7 wars in 8 years. He did not initiate 7 wars in 8 years. Now, it is true to say that Trump did not attack any countries while he was president, and that's a good thing. Wonderful thing. Couldn't agree more with that policy. Now, here's the other thing. I want to take it a step further. The corporate Democrats like Obama, like Bill Clinton, just like George W. Bush, who wasn't a Democrat, of course, was a Republican, did meddle in other countries. They're guilty of doing that. And in no way, shape, even though they brought forth to the public that this would bring about peace in some way or bring about security for the United States, it never has. So if you truly are interested in peace, as you're putting out there, because your guy didn't start a war, right? And the other guy, the enemy, did, right? And that's your way of trying to make Obama look bad, which I don't care if you try to make Obama look bad, believe me. But if you're truly that interested in peace, then I hope you investigate for yourself and you look into what Maitreya says about the principle of sharing, because I can provide historical evidence that did bring about peace. Sharing brought about justice, brought about peace. The nations that participated in the Marshall Plan, like I say in every video, pretty much, those nations have not attacked one another since the inception of the Marshall Plan and it ending. Prior to that, you couldn't say that, right? So the United States had attacked England England had attacked the United States at some point, twice. The United States had attacked and invaded Germany. Germany had invaded France, had bombed England. But since then, can't claim that, right? And that's because of the principle of sharing taking place in the way that it did. Imagine what would have happened if they had done it with every nation, and not just the Western European nations that were our political interests, but the whole world, even countries that we didn't have a real reason to share with. What would the world look like if it had been like that and never ended? We would be living in a world with manifested unity on this planet at this moment in time. That would have been enough time for all this to manifest. But it stopped, and it was just amongst a few nations. And it is true what you're saying and your criticism toward Obama, but you got to criticize Bush, you got to criticize Clinton, you got to criticize the other Bush, you got to criticize, all the presidents that have done this, right? Especially since the inception of the Pentagon, that it's never brought about peace, invading another country. That's true, and it will never bring about peace because it's never brought about peace. The only thing that will bring about peace, according to Maitreya, is the principle of sharing. So, it's not about eating the words. It's about discussing this in a respectful manner. You know what I mean? But, I see where you're coming from, for sure. But thank you very much for your comment. Like I said, even though I had to take that one down, I hope you comment in the future and learn from your mistake of not to name call in that way at the end of what you had to say, because I really liked what you had to say. All right, now, Ashwak Radati, you asked a question. Do you please know the Schiller Institute and the Senator Colonel Richard Black? No, I do not, unfortunately. I have not investigated into any of that, and I do apologize. I truly am a one-trick pony when it comes to this information. People ask me questions about this book, or about that person, or about this, and I always, not always, but I oftentimes have to say, I don't know anything about that, I'm so sorry. So Benjamin Creme was special in a way because if he didn't know, he could just ask his master. His master could tell him the answer. You know what I'm saying? I don't have that kind of connection, so unfortunately I won't be able to shed any light on that. So, but thank you very much for telling everybody about it, and I need to look into it. So anyway, but thank you. Let's see. Rick Todd, what you had to say? Thank you for your post, Gary. I always look forward to them. Well, thank you. You're very kind. Can you comment on the Masters of Wisdom? I seem to remember Benjamin Creme saying something about his experience in the 20 years before his overshadowing of Maitreya and how painful it was to have his personal life exposed to the stark light of the soul. Oh, that's interesting. Now, when you say, can I comment on the Masters of Wisdom, you're talking about the Masters of Wisdom? So if I didn't clarify who the Masters of Wisdom were, I apologize. I will say this. If you want to know more about the Masters of Wisdom, just as you want to know more about Maitreya and his priorities, go to the Share International site. The link is in the description. You can read more about it from Benjamin Creme and learn more about who and what the Masters are in that way better than you can anywhere else. In fact, if you really want to know about how they think and their priorities and how they'll be teaching humanity, I think the best way to really understand that is to read Benjamin Creme's Masters articles. Read them for yourself, think about it, and see if there's any truth to it in that way. But you will get a very good idea about how they'll be teaching humanity coming from one of the masters, even though they're just an article. You know what I mean? But who and what the masters are and the truth about who and what they are, were long forgotten out of humanity's memory, because it's been over 100,000 years since they were out teaching humanity directly in the way that they were prior to them retreating, and ultimately teaching humanity indirectly for as long as they have. That, if I didn't totally screw that up. But anyway, over 100,000 years ago, the knowledge of who the masters were, what they meant for humanity, their teachings and those kind of things were all known, because they were out in the world, in an everyday world, like they're about to do in the very near future. But for over 100,000 years, they worked with humanity indirectly through their disciples in the world, coming out from time to time like Jesus, like Krishna, like the Buddha, teaching humanity, showing the humanity the way, having some of their teachings written down in that way. But Jesus is a good example. The Buddha is a great example. Krishna is a great example about who and what these masters are, because they were very, very close to being a master at the time that they were teaching humanity. Well, Krishna was a master, but anyway. But Jesus was very close to being a master. And so you can get an idea about how these masters will interact with humanity based on that. You know, Jesus had no enemies. He loved everyone unconditionally, just as every one of these other masters do. He conquered death by being resurrected after 3 days, as proposed and reported purported in the Bible as doing. Conquered death in that way, just as every one of these other masters have done. Where this information fits into this is these masters are coming back into the everyday world to teach humanity how to be like them, how to manifest our divinity. Whatever that means for you individually or me individually or somebody else individually is different, because we're all a part of the same divinity, but we're all unique. But how do we manifest that divinity? Well, it starts by learning to live within the laws of life, learning to be harmless toward one another, and those kind of things, knowing about the law of cause and effects, like Jesus talked about, like Krishna talked about, like the Buddha talked about. That when we harm somebody else, it harms us, those kind of things. They'll be teaching humanity the laws of life in that way. We'll have fine examples of what it means to truly be a joyful manifestation of divinity. Being truly creative as they are, moment to moment, knowing nothing but joy and love and seeing everybody as one family and not above one another or below one another, all equal. That's who these masters are. They don't put themselves above anybody, and they don't put anybody else above them. But they know nothing but service. They don't care about anything in terms of their own individual self in that way, like we would. Like, hey man, I hope I can make $1 million next year or something. They don't think about that. They don't have any thought about that at all. They're only concerned about serving others in that way. Or as the masters would say, there are no others. They will be serving themselves. So serving the oneness of humanity, I guess, is maybe a better way of saying it. But they are us in potential. They are here to teach us how to be them, and not just be potential, but eventually manifest the divinity the same way that they do. And if you want to know more, like I said, about the masters, go to the Share International site. You can learn way more about who and what the masters are coming from Benjamin Creme. Reading the articles from Benjamin Creme's master and those kind of things in that way. If you want to take it a step further and go and read some of the literature from Alice Bailey, you can get a good idea of how the masters will teach humanity that way too. But does that answer that comment? But anyway, like I said, I really do appreciate your comment and your question too as well, Rick. I really do appreciate it. Well, anyway, I think that covered everything. Thank you, everybody, for commenting. Thank you for listening. I love you. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there. Stay well. And I cannot wait to put another video.
Remember,
you guys
take
care.
action.
Have a wonderful day.
And help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.